If you want to understand what is a role that an MLOps specialist plays in the age of AI, you must watch this video till the end. Because I'm going to show you how you can build a dream team which is building these AI applications would look like today, and then break it down one role at a time so that you understand what is the role of a data engineer, how they are different than the data scientist, what role the ML engineer plays, and what is AI engineering, and where all MLOps starts making sense. Hi, this is Gourav Shah, the founder of School of DevOps and AI, and I'm gonna break it down one role at a time. Let's begin with understanding the use case first. You could take a travel application like I've just created the fictional application called TravelMed. Think of it as Airbnb. And then let's say when you go to the Airbnb site, you get some recommendation based on your prior history, what your interests, what your searches, and those are the recommendation. Plus, you will see some reviews. And these days, in addition to reviews, you also see a small summary of the reviews. Like what I have here for Amazon. And this is a Gen AI thing. Okay. This is the modern generative AI foundational model that we are talking about. What it does is it does some sentimental analysis based on all the reviews and gives you what customers are talking about for that product. That's a summary of it. And that's very useful for you to understand how this product is and so on, right? So that's the Gen AI use case. And then we have the recommendation, which are typical machine learning, traditional machine learning use case here. For example, you can figure out what I've been searching for, like, oh, this is the mic. This is the same mic, by the way, that I'm using here, the Shure mic. So it shows up in my recommendation list along with all the, like, you already know that I'm reading about machine learning and AI. So all the books related to that and the products that have been based on my interest, based on what I'm searching for, and based on what I am most probably like to go and buy next. That is the prediction that is happening here. How is it happening and who all is involved is where we bring in the dream team. Let's start talking about the personas here. Who is involved in what? And it all starts with the data. So you have to collect this data based on the reviews, purchase history, and the products that I've been buying, searching, and whatnot, right? So some of this is a structured data. In case of the travel portal like Airbnb or the fictional example that I took, it could be like details of the property, booking history. That could be a very structured data. And then we have unstructured data like, oh, user reviews, or maybe users have call up the customer service. So there are call records available. That may not be necessarily structured data. Any images which are uploaded to the property, any images that the customers have added as part of reviews or whatever. So that all becomes unstructured data. Sometimes you also have streaming data. So someone has to take all of this data, structured, unstructured, process it, clean it, and make it available for running these machine learning models so that you can create some intelligent insights. And that is where the first persona or the first role comes in from our dream team, that is data engineer. Now, data engineer, to simply say, this is the new avatar of the big data engineer. We just removed big because that big data is no more a big data. It's become a norm. It's become a norm to have a large set of structured and unstructured data today. So there is no need to call them as big data engineer anymore. And how they're different from traditional big data engineers is, unlike your traditional big data, which was based on mostly the scheduled jobs, like using Hadoop and MapReduce and whatnot. There's a lot more to it now. There's a lot of real-time processing. There are different types of data stores which are available now. The role of a data engineer is basically to do some sort of extraction, transformation and loading ETL. And that's where you have a lot of cloud services. Like for example, AWS Glue is a ETL engine, which is a managed service. So you don't need to use the traditional Hadoop MapReduce. You can use the cloud-based services. You can use today EMR also. That's a managed service. And you have different types of, you have SQL. You can convert, like you have to extract data. You have to look at the data, whether you have missing data, how do you handle it and all that. So data engineers are nothing but the software engineers who are applying their software engineering principles to data and generating the pipeline. So it's a pipeline, it's going to be a pipeline of data. So it's not a one-time process, right? So you build those pipelines and repeatable pipelines to convert it into something that the data scientists can work on. And then there is SQL, NoSQL. Then earlier we had data warehouses. Then came data lakes, and now we have lake houses. Basically, this is about keeping unstructured data as in, and then being able to query it as well. That is where tools like Apache, Iceberg, and those kind of Iceberg and those kind of services come in here. And then for streaming data, you have something like Kafka or Flink, and so on. Right now, the next role that comes in once you have the data available for analysis is the data scientist. The data scientist looks at the objectives. Objectives is, oh, I have to create the recommendation engine like this, or I have to give you the sentimental analysis. Or maybe in case of some service, you have the Gen AI part of it, which is also sentimental analysis is there, and the summary of review summary here. But also now you have some chatbots or conversational agents which happen in real time. So this is a batch process. This is a real-time process. Both are using modern LLMs and Gen AI, and this is the traditional machine learning. So what to use where, what to do with data, how to use that data to create those insights is where data scientists come in and build some prototype models here. So they are the ones who build these prototypes, and what algorithm to use there for what purpose. For example, for recommendation, you may have certain type of filtering and algorithm and deep learning and whatnot. And then you also have some sort of a dynamic pricing model now that happens with airlines, that happens with flights, and even during the sale and non-sale seasons, you have different prices for the products. So these dynamic pricing, and they are actually, data scientists are to blame for the dynamic pricing and not getting tickets in a reasonable rate during the vacation season, because they are studying this data, they're studying this demand supply, and based on that, the dynamic pricing, they set up the models which are automatically setting up this dynamic pricing. And what kind of models to use there, like maybe regression models or XGBoost and so on. Regression is basically based on past data and whatnot and so on, right? So data scientists are basically the ones who are building this prototype models. They figure out the business problem, and based on that, they create these exploratory things and build the prototypes after that. And there are different roles even in data science. So there are different types of roles. So depending on the organization, the size of the organization, also depending on your country, because in India you have data scientists who also do MLEs, machine learning, right? But there are a lot of other places where you have separate data scientist teams and then machine learning engineers. You also have, sometimes you have research analysts and applied researchers and so on, but largely you can call them as data science, all of this, right? Now we've built these prototypes. What do we do next, right? And this is where they may use the libraries like scikit-learn and TensorFlow and PyTorch, and these are the tools of a data scientist. Now, data scientists have built these prototypes. What do we do with this prototype? You have to take it to the production, deploy it, make it ready for production even, because this may be just for sample data, may not be for real world data. And when it goes to the real world data, you have to optimize it for performance, for cost, to reliability. And that's where you have the machine learning engineers. They are, think of them as the modern, like specialized software engineers, again with the knowledge of machine learning, the models. And they are the ones who uh, take this prototypes and take a build production ready models, actually, which should survive in the real world. That is where a lot of challenges are in the today's world as well. And they are also responsible for building services on top of that. They are the programmers, they are the coders typically, right? They have a good software engineering skills, and they will build or write the code and even microservices application on top of that, use something like fast API and stuff like that, and Streamlit, fast API. They'll write all this code and create production ready models. And they'll also be responsible for deploying those models and training those models and setting up that pipeline and so on. And that is where you have the MLOps, the one in the green where you're deploying, monitoring, retraining the model in production is the MLOps part of it. The AI engineers are like the extension to ML engineers, as I would say, because they know about machine learning essentials, and then they work on the foundational models. Foundational models, as in when we talk about GPT and BERT and Roberta, and all of these are new, the large language models, and we call it them foundational models actually because they can be used for generative purposes or summarization purposes or some other purposes as well, right? And that's where you have a lot of fine tuning that you do on existing foundational models. You build wrappers on top of that, write some applications on it, and that's the role of an AI engineer. So AI engineer, you can think of like you have a scope. So AI engineers, you can't produce out of thin air, right? So someone has to take that role. So typically machine learning engineers or even maybe depending on what your interests are, and these lines are blurring because depending on the organizations, depending on the size of the organization, you may have just one person doing everything, or maybe data scientists and ml engineering doing everything, or maybe it's interchangeable role at some times. So all of that happens. I'm just giving you a very large overview of how it would be if you have to build a dream team. They're the ones who are going to take it to the production, and since they are the software engineers with machine learning expertise, they also have some expertise on have caught up on the DevOps side of things like containerization, a bit of CI/CD, setting up the model kind of a monitoring. And they are sometimes responsive. Sometimes those are the people, and a lot of jobs postings that you see are people with ML experience and doing the MLOps as well, right? That's why you see it that way. So think of them as part-time MLOps practitioners. And this is also where I see an emerging role of the MLOps specialists who can be someone with either DevOps experience, who who has or who picks up the domain knowledge. The reason why you don't see a lot of DevOps, and now you do see, but DevOps engineers are yet to caught up with the machine learning concepts, and but that will happen eventually, and you will be responsible also for this kind of a platform. And how will it work? Is what the way I see it is here, right? Because you look at it, it starts with data. You have to collect large data, structured, unstructured, create the pipelines here, and you're dealing with certain type of databases and other services also here. So this is going to run on some platform. Also, all these models that you're building, maybe data scientists work. Apart from revision controlling, you don't need a lot of DevOps services and tooling here. But here, you need a lot of tooling plus the platform. You definitely need a platform on top of which all of this is running and happening. And that is where a lot of times this is going to be on cloud. In addition to the cloud, you're going to have Kubernetes cluster on top of which, because a lot of this runs as containers also. Um, when you deploy the model, it is called as an inference. It could be batch inference or it could be real-time inference. Just to take you back to the example, a batch inference is nothing but when you do this summary, you can run this job to generate a summary once in a day. That's a batch inference. Versus this is an interactive application where the customers are interacting and then you have to respond in real time, maybe use the foundational Gen AI models in the backend and so on. So that's more like a real time inference. And these are some of the differences there. So ultimately, these are some Python applications and so on, working with fast API, Streamlit, and whatnot. And again, those are created and written by ML engineers or AI engineers. And what the way I see the role of MLOps is providing this platform as a service to this AI team here, which is consuming this platform. So you're gonna be cutting across the across this end-to-end workflow as an MLOps expert, full-time MLOps expert, or you may be working with multiple teams, or maybe you are also doing your traditional DevOps job. Because see, at the end of the day, a common misconception or a myth is everything is going to be replaced with AI. And that's not true, because you take the example of this e-commerce platform. You still have these web servers running, you still have these web applications running. The recommendation engine is just one part of it. The summarization is also one part of it. Same with this travel application. You still have all these web services, microservices, databases, storage, containers, your container orchestration engine. So observability, all of this is happening in parallel. Remember that, right? So you're still doing that. Plus, you may be a specialist in this as well. So it may be you're doing this part time, both of these, or you may be full time involved based on again the organization, the scale, and how much work is there available for you, right? Because if the organization is using a platform like Databricks, that's another reason why you see a lot of ML engineers are only needed for ML ops, is because if you're using a platform like Databricks today, it comes with everything. You don't need to do much. It underneath it is the cloud, so it manages the cloud. It's like a pass. It manages the cloud internally, so you're not doing much there. It comes with ML flow and a lot of tools as well. But I see a lot of open source technologies evolving and coming into play, and that is already happening. And when that happens, you're dealing with Kubernetes here and Kubernetes based tools like Kubeflow and whatnot. There's ML flow also is there. And then you have many services running on top of this, like LangChain and single store and vector DBs and different services. So someone has to integrate these tools, set up these tools, automate things, automate the cloud services. That is where your role as a DevOps engineer who has an expertise in ML ops will come in, and that's where you will be building, serving, managing this platform, and that's where you will. That's why the way I look at it, instead of MLOps specialist, because MLOps specialist can be, oh, you can be doing part-time MLOps as well as an ML engineer, or you may be a full-time DevOps engineer come MLOps specialist, in which case, to me, AI platform engineering makes more sense because ultimately you're building, serving this platform and managing it, managing the tool chain. Also, building, typically, the platform engineer's role is that you're providing the golden path to your internal customers who could be data scientists or data engineers or machine learning engineers. So, whatever their workflows are, you're optimizing them, maybe setting up the branching model for them and setting up the Git integration with Databricks. Maybe you are building these data ingestion and processing pipelines. Maybe you are also helping deploying this. But you are not completely owning the CI/CD process here, typically, because what happens with models are they behave differently than your applications. A Python application, when it fails, it will give a clear traceback, or a Java application will give you an error. Whereas the models won't give error but fail because they're not performing ethically, right? Maybe they're not as relevant based on the data because you have to retrain the models and all that. So the way it gets monitored is slightly different. So you definitely need some domain expertise. So either you as a DevOps come MLOps specialist starts, definitely you need the domain knowledge, but you can start building your expertise there, or it could be a combination of ML or AI engineers along with the DevOps specialist who will be doing the ML ops. So that's why I say ML ops is more like set of practices, and who does it depends on the organization, depending on the platform that they have and the needs of that organization. Sometimes it's just ML engineers and doing a few things, whereas a full-fledged implementation may involve a more intensive, and more experienced and need for having a specialized role. And that is where I see something like a AI platform. It will still be called as MLOps engineer, right? So that's fine, but think of it as that way. And you are actually building, providing the platform and tooling, and any tool that comes in anywhere here, and any practices that you need to provide, workflow that you have to automate, tweak the Kubernetes infrastructure for GPUs and whatnot, set up anything, build cloud, automate that. That is where I see the role of true MLOps engineer or AI platform engineer, as I call it. So just like DevOps, right? Even developers do DevOps. They know containers, they know CI/CD. So similarly, ML engineers, AI engineers, data scientists also do MLOps, but they are MLOps practitioners, as I would call it. And then DevOps engineers would most likely be the MLOps engineers or AI platform engineers, where you are doing an expert role. Again, it might be your full-time work or it might be your part-time work, depending on all the factors that I mentioned already. I hope you found all of this information to be useful, especially all the roles and how MLOps can fit in. If you want to get started with MLOps, we have a free guide which is linked in the description below. So do check it out and do subscribe to this channel and then head over to mlops.tv. This is Gourav Shah from School of DevOps signing off. I'll see you in the next one.